Assalamu alaikum. Hello back, everyone. Thank you for submitting your homework, most of you. If you didn't already submit your homework, it's not good, but I'll give you a chance until tomorrow at 11 o'clock. If you don't find me in my office, you just slip it under the door. But I will deduct marks from you if you are late. Because if you submit on time, you get the full mark for submitting on time. So today, we have a review class. We'll see what questions you have about the course. أبدأ تاني؟ أوكي. لازم أسعيد من الأول ها؟ الآن بدي أبدأ يلا again. Come on. الفيشة. This or this?
صورة واضحة يا أخوات.
Yeah, better. Thank you. So, assalamu alaikum again, everyone. Thank you for submitting your first assignment for this course, and I'm really looking forward to grading them. I'm sure you did a good job answering questions about Shakespeare. Today I'll take a chance to give you a review session. Let's take a break. Let's not begin a new lesson because we're supposed to start with Marlowe and Ben Jonson as other Renaissance Elizabethan dramatists and playwrights and poets also who were contemporary to Shakespeare. They lived at the time Shakespeare was also alive and writing. So today we'll do a review. Please feel free to ask any question you have, and I'll do my best to try to answer the question. Okay? Yes? Can you also, everyone, if you want to ask question, please speak up.
When two lines of verse rhyme, we call them couplet, right?
Yeah.
And the system and octave. When does the 8 lines have to rhyme, so we're going to call them system and octave?
Okay. So when we spoke about the sonnet, remember the Italian sonnet?
Yes.
The sonnet was born in Italy with a Y, not I. And we spoke about Dante in brief. We spoke also about the other name, the other Italian sonneteer, the father of the sonnet, Petrarch. Is it a difficult name? Is it difficult? So Petrarch, C-H, Petrarch, exactly how you spell it. Now Petrarch is said to be the most important Italian sonneteer. There are actually other names in Italy, but this is what we want to focus on because of Petrarch, Henry Howard, and Sir Thomas Wyatt, they loved the sonnet. And again, remember we always talk about the influence of Europe, of Italy, France, mainly Italy and France. Actually, the Renaissance started in Italy well before it started in England. So England was still being influenced by Europe, especially by Italy. So the sonnet, the Italian sonnet, is generally 2 parts. Remember, the form, the structure of the sonnet is 8 lines and then 6 lines. 8 lines and 6 lines. The 8 lines we call the octave. And this is the sisted. Sisted from 6. An octave, you know, octopus, because of the 8 tentacles. Now, the Italian sonnet almost always rhymes as A, B, B. A, A, B, B, A. Now this, you're answering the question. This is, in a way, 4 lines. Remember the 4 line, the quatrain?
Yeah.
Your question is, does this count as a rhyme? As a rhyming couplet? No. You know why? Because generally this stops here. Even, does this count as a couplet? No, it's part of the octave or the group of the stanza or the quatrain. However, if in your exam or you find 2 lines, somebody likes just these lines, and you look at them in isolation, you can't call them a couplet. It's okay. You can. If they are in isolation, because you don't know the context, you don't know. But generally, this is important. Generally, here they don't give one idea. That's the most important thing about the couplet, remember?
Yeah,
The
they
same
get topic.
meaning.
It's like a paragraph, a prose paragraph. What is a paragraph? A group of related sentences about
One topic.
one topic, one idea. Now the couplet, 2 rhyming lines. 2 rhymes, 2 lines that rhyme, and they are about the same thing. Always remember Shakespeare's couplet at the end. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. What happens in the first 4 lines here, the quatrain, is the author develops an idea. If you stop here, the idea is not complete. If you stop here, it's usually not complete. If you stop here, it's usually not complete. When you finish the first 4 lines, you have a part of an idea that could give you something. But it's not complete until, in the Italian sonnet, until you read the first 8 lines. When you read the first 8 lines, you realize, oh, okay. So it gives you an idea. The same with Shakespeare. When we spoke about Shakespeare, we said Shakespeare's structure is, we have 3 quatrains, remember? 3. What's a quatrain?
4 lines.
From quarter. Okay? And a couplet. Plus a couplet. Now, the first 4 lines usually have one idea, one image. And then the second quatrain moves to another idea or image. And the third quatrain moves to the other idea. But the 3 quatrains have the same theme, the same problem, the same crisis. Like in Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? He spends almost 12 lines saying, no, life is not perfect. Every fair from fair sometime declines. Summer is beautiful, but sometimes there is rough winds, right?
Yeah.
Summer is beautiful, but again the winds do shake the darling buds of May. Summer is beautiful, but summer is sometimes what?
Hot.
Short and hot. Sometimes the clouds destroy the beauty of this. So he moves from one image to the other, like in Sonnet 73, I guess, where he speaks in the first quatrains, he speaks about the end of the year, autumn.
Yes.
What happens in autumn?
Yellow leaves.
Yellow leaves. Right? The end of the circle. In the second
About the
quatrain,
end of the
speaks
day.
about the end of the day, the sunset. So the day is good. We start active, energetic. We have all hopes and dreams. We want to go to school, to attend classes, to meet friends, to go to the cafeteria, to eat pizza. At the end of the day, it's like everything comes to an end. Nothing lasts forever. And then in the third quatrain, he speaks about the end of a fire. Fires, fire. But it ends up as ashes. So what is Shakespeare doing here? He's giving us 3 images. The 3 images about the inevitability of death. The passing of time. Time kills everything. In a way, this is the crisis. This is the issue of time. But what does he do in the couplet?
He gives hope.
Make
In a
hope.
way, he twists. There's something called a volta. The volta is a twist. Where like in Sonnet 18, again, he says something like, I can't remember that couplet, like similar to 18, he says that but my poetry will live forever. My poetry doesn't die. My sonnet doesn't die. Reminding us of, again, how he believes in his poetry, giving us some kind of hope or closure or ending. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So the couplet has one idea. So again, going back to your question, can we call this here a couplet?
No.
Generally, no. If you find them alone, wandering around, you could say that, but when you read them, they're not going to give you a full idea, like the idea of so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, or this gives life to thee. In other words, in your exam, I'm not going to give you 2 lines from here and ask you whether this is a couplet. I'll give you a full stanza. Either 2 lines, if it is complete couplet, or quatrain, 4 lines, or sestet, or maybe 8 lines. But we usually, because you're still beginning to learn English and English literature, I usually only focus on 2 liners. Okay? Any other question about the sonnet? Does anyone want to ask questions about the sonnet, the rhyme scheme, the importance of the sonnet, Shakespeare and the sonnet? Please do ask. Sorry? Not the sonnet? So, no more sonnet? Okay, I'll ask you a question here. In one stanza we studied in the other class today, there was, okay, don't look at the book, I'll just bring it myself. There was a line ending in drops and the other one ending in box. Drops and the other one ending in box. Listen, these words don't rhyme. Do they rhyme? Is there rhyme here? This doesn't count, generally, unless the sounds before it have something similar to drop. Like hops, for example. Hops, drops and hops. Okay? But drops and box, they don't rhyme. The rhyme is generally not the last sound, usually 2, sometimes 3. We need to look at this carefully. Another example, what do you think of this? A very famous poem by Marlowe, we'll study later on. He says, he begins his poem saying, "Come, live with me and be my love." And notice when you begin a line of verse, you begin
The
capital. That's the rules when you write poetry. The first word, you capitalize the first letter of the first word of each and every line.
Yes.
And this is how you distinguish sometimes verse from prose in Shakespeare.
Yes.
If it is capitalized, then it's
It's
poetry.
so-
If it's not,
It's prose.
but more important than this is the music. We've seen how Shylock doesn't use poetry in Hath Not a Jew Eyes. And we will all the pleasures. That's a very famous a poem here. Is it a couplet?
No.
Okay, we have love and prove.
Not the same sound.
Okay, we have O-V-E and also O-V-E. If you know how to do transcription, this is love and this is prove. Probably next year. What do you think of this? Is this a couplet?
No.
Do we have rhyme here? What do you think?
No, it's not a couplet because the sound is different.
The sounds are different. We have love, like dove, cut, hot, but,
And the blue.
and this is prove. What do you think? Does anybody have something?
Imperfect rhyme. Yes.
If you look at the words, they look similar.
Yes.
They look similar. O-V-E, O-V-E. The V sound is the same, but the one before. So if you look at it from a distance, if you don't know the words, how they are pronounced, you think they rhyme. But in reality, they don't perfectly rhyme. They partially rhyme. We call this, it has different names. It's called imperfect rhyme. Or sometimes it's called I rhyme. You know I rhyme?
Yeah.
Because you look at it, they sound like they would be rhyming, but they don't rhyme perfectly. So what is this? It's still a couplet. This is a couplet because it has one idea. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove. Is there a rhyme here? Yes.
Yes.
But the rhyme is
Rhyme.
imperfect. Imperfect, still a rhyme.
Why?
Now, imperfect rhyme is still a rhyme. They rhyme, but they don't rhyme 100%. They rhyme like what, 60, 50%? Now, there is a justification for here. Sometimes the poet uses imperfect rhyme to tell us there's something wrong here. Okay, so look at this. This is a poem, a man inviting his beloved to love him and live with him. Why? Well, how is he trying to convince her? He's telling her, we will all the pleasures prove. We have all the pleasures in the world. In reality, no one has all the pleasures in the world. Nobody owns all the pleasures in the world. He's exaggerating. So, in reality, he's not telling the truth. And this sound here, prove, is telling us that he's lying. Because he's trying to depict life to the woman as a perfect, perfect life. But even the rhyme doesn't rhyme perfectly. That's the trick here. Yes. So the rhyme, the imperfect rhyme here, tells us something about the idea. So there is imperfection in the poem. And the imperfection is reflected in the imperfect rhyme. But what is the poet saying? He's saying, life is perfect, I own everything, all is fine, I own everything, we can have all the pleasures in the world. And the sound of the poem tells us he's lying. Because the rhyme scheme is imperfect, it reflects something imperfect in the meaning, in the idea. Or, simply, some people would say, but this is a very unpoetic answer, maybe during the time of Shakespeare or Marlowe, maybe these words could have the same rhyme. Could have rhymed in the past, like 300-400 years ago. Maybe they rhymed. I don't know how. Which is better, to say love and prove, or love and prove?
Love or prove?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's harsh to destroy love saying love. Maybe you can play with prove. But I don't know how they pronounce it. Maybe we can check this later on. So what's the point here? Sometimes this is not rhyme because the is here doesn't make rhyme. You need to check the letter, the sound before. Here, we check the sound before. And they don't perfectly rhyme. We call it imperfect rhyme. Or I rhyme. Is this important in the poem? Yes, because it reveals
The truth.
something about the poem, the meaning itself. The poet is saying, wait a minute. There is music and fun, but here we don't have perfect music. We don't have perfect music because something is wrong. What's wrong here? A poet lying to his woman. And the title of the poem here is The Shepherds. The shepherd, the speaker, the character, the man saying, come live with me and be my love, is a shepherd. And a shepherd is generally a poor man who takes care of sheep. If you are a shepherd, it's impossible for you to have all the pleasures in the life, etc. Okay? No more questions about the sonnet? Please do ask if you have any. The sonnet, go.
So I didn't get clearly, but it is in a rhyme scheme we focus more on the letters rather than the sound.
The sounds, of course. No, the sound. When it comes to the rhyme, we care about the sound, not the letter.
But it drops the F box like just to clear
This one? No. Yeah, no. Sometimes, yes, like, why wouldn't this rhyme? Like, because more important, this is an additional letter, like it just comes and goes.
Drop and book. It's imperfect. Drop, book.
Drop and book? No way.
No.
Drop. Book. 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 No way.
Talking about the O's.
No. Even like like even if we have, like if we say, for example, even if we say drop, it's not drop, it's drop, 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 drop. It still doesn't rhyme, never rhymes. Drop and book, no way, there's no rhyme here. But with the S, does it rhyme? No, I don't think it rhymes here. But if you insist, it's okay, it's not a big deal. Yes?
If there was a text and you asked us to write the rhyme scheme, and there was drops and books, shall we write drop A and box B?
Yeah. But if you don't, because you're still beginners, it's not the end of the world.
The same with love and food. Shall we write
No,
A?
but this one, there's rhyme here. There is rhyme here. But it's imperfect. This is clearer than this in many ways. Good question. So, because this is not year 4, you're not about to graduate, you're still starting your life learning English poetry, and you're not native speakers. So sometimes there's a lot of flexibility. Yes? Go on, next.
I want to ask something. Are the questions about history, for example, who invaded England, are they included in the exam?
Listen, this is a course about...
The literature itself or the...
Yeah, it's this. We're not studying history. We're studying literature. This is an introduction to English literature course for beginners. And I said at the beginning, we're going to examine the literary texts in their historical context. We're going to study how historical events influence literature, and how literature influenced life, changed life in a way or another. But the focus, 80% of our focus is on the literature. Okay? Some events in history are very important, like the printing press. You should know this. This is a historical, this is a scientific invention. It's a historical event. Did it influence literature?
Yes.
Of course.
It helped.
Because, mass production, like people had more and more copies. It took 2 years to make one copy of the Bible.
Yes.
But now,
Easy.
1 year, 200 copies. For example, the French invasion, the Normans, when they came to England, they influenced the language and the literature. So the focus is on the literature, but it is important to know the major historical events.
For example, Britain was invaded by many people from Europe, Anglo-Saxons, Jews. That's not included.
You should know this. Okay,
Are you going to put a question in the exam?
maybe.
Maybe.
But
Okay.
the question here is in the literary context, in the sense that, remember, when we spoke about Old English, we said at that time we didn't have a clear idea of what England is. Even the literature was not pure English in the sense we have now, or even the sense Shakespeare composed, because people still came from different countries across Europe, and they were using different languages. So did this, the invasions, did this influence the culture, the language, the literature? Yes, and that's the focus. So at that time we said England was trying to shape its identity. In the Middle Ages, Middle English, later on, like 300, 400, 500 years later, we started speaking about English literature, pure English literature, when we spoke about Chaucer. We said in Chaucer there's always this insistence on being different. He began his life, by the way, by imitating some Italian and French authors. But later on he developed his own style. He focused on the Englishness of the literature.
Reason for that?
Because when you have your own country, you want to have your own culture and literature. You want to be different. You want to create your identity. Remember we spoke about the English identity? When we mentioned Skeleton, Philip Sparrow, Vengeance I Ask and Cry. we said John Skilton was an important poet at that time because, in a way, he was helping shape the English identity. And in his poetry, we can find poetry that is different from the poetry of Europe, mainly Italy and France. In his poetry, there's a strong sense of the English identity. What is the English identity? What it means to be English. What makes you different from
The other
Italians and French? Number one, your language, right? Number two, your literature, your poetry, the stories, the narratives, the customs, the habits. So they were focusing on the things that make them different. So these invasions are important because English as a language is actually originally from different languages. There are, Latin roots, German roots, French words, many French words, even Arab words. English is naturally a very flexible language. It borrows from all the languages. So the invasions are important to understand because this is how England became England. It became diversity. There is now a strong movement in England and in the United States that is described as white supremacy, where people say England is for the white, only the white people, and America is for the white people. This is really silly because of racism, yeah, but also because England and America, they started on diversity in a sense. People from across Europe came there. People from across Europe went to America, and there was this reconstructing of. They found a body of 10,000 years ago in England, and when they did experiments and tests, they realized that he's a black man in England. He was there 10,000 years ago. And he's considered, I guess, the father of 20% of the English people now. So there's the idea of pure race is a lie. It's not true, it's a fabrication. People have always coexisted together. Why is this man, black man in England? Because people crossed borders, searching for safety, for food, coexisted in a way or another. Please.
Some of the names are really hard to spell. If we misspelled some...
No worries about spelling. But like Machiavelli, for example, okay, not easy to spell, but try to train it to get as close as possible. Don't give me, for example, don't spell spaghetti. Machiavelli is Machiavelli. What difficult names. But again, most importantly, I don't want you to misspell Shakespeare. I'll feel sad. That's shakes, shakes, shaking. Shake before use.
Yes.
She shakes the, the juice before use. It's a shake and then, or shake, spear. I don't know how you would do this. Either shake or shakes, and then, or spear. Because spear is another word, but this E is extra. Did I tell you that Shakespeare spelled his name, signed his name in 17 different ways? None of them, ironically, none of them is this one. And this is how crazy life is. So you spell your name 17 different ways, hoping that people would pick one of, because remember, spelling, there was no, standard for spelling. There were no rules for spelling. People would spell different ways. Only in the 18th century, people started to have rules. Do this, don't do that, drop this, changes. So this is Shakespeare. You usually forget either this E or this E. So Shakespeare. Please don't. Maybe he's going to feel sad if you do that. But more than this, we want to really appreciate Shakespeare for what he does. What other names do you find difficult? Beowulf?
No. Chaucer, he is in the Italian writings of Bassasio.
Listen, if it is something I skipped, you just skip it.
Skip what?
So everything that is...
If I skip names of authors, names of texts, you just skip them. But other than this, the background, the talk, the brief description about the age, about the writer, about the text, please go through them. And I want you to read what is in the book, because this is how you improve your writing and your English.
So, we'll focus just on
The
one
name, the authors, the texts we study, we examine, we mention in this class. If I skip something, any name, any text, you just skip it. Please.
Are we going to be asked about, to summarize one of the plays of Shakespeare?
Generally, no, you won't. But maybe, for example, in one of your questions is going to ask you to contextualize. Anyway, I shouldn't be speaking about this now, because we'll talk about this when we approach the exams. You know, context, to contextualize a text. So, I'll ask you, for example, I'll bring you 5 extracts from poems or texts we studied, and I ask you to contextualize 3 or 4 of them. I usually give you more choices, so more flexibility. Okay, question number 1 is to be or not to be. That is the question. So number 1, you put it in its context. You tell me this is by Hamlet, from Hamlet, by Shakespeare. Hamlet is a tragedy of a young prince who wanted to take revenge because his uncle killed his father. Most importantly, focus on the text I give you. However, because Hamlet is a modern man, as a university student, he is in conflict. To kill or not to kill, to be or not to be, to die or not to die. And this is Hamlet's tragic flaw. You know, tragedy, tragic? His weakness is hesitation. Sloth, hesitation. You know hesitation? To be or not to be, to kill or not to kill, play or not to play. Exactly, he hesitates. That's it. This is called contextualization. But although he is a philosopher, nevertheless, he has a little gold in his coffer. This is from the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. This couplet, this rhyming couplet, right? Okay, has irony, but probably before this, give me the context. It tells the story of a philosopher who, instead of collecting knowledge, is collecting money. There is irony here because Chaucer is making fun of the new habits of the society. Short paragraphs like these, okay? Clear?
To explain the line.
Focus on the line. What do we have in the line? When you tell me this is a couplet, you save yourself a lot of time. Instead of saying the rhyme and there is a rhyme and one topic, you say a couplet. Oh, excellent.
So we should write the author and
Okay, again, this extract is taken from Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. That's number 1. In this extract, in this couplet, Chaucer is criticizing the new habits of the society. Here, we have a philosopher who is interested more in collecting money than in knowledge. There is irony in a little gold, because a little gold is still a lot of money. Okay? Something like this. This is called contextualization. You don't have to memorize the lines, but if you do, it will really be fun for you. Just, I will not ask you to recite something or complete a line or something. But when you memorize, does anyone memorize anything?
No.
Other than have not a Jew eyes or something? You should, it's really fun. For God's sakes. Or shall I compare thee to summer's day? You feel like, oh my God, I know more English than anyone else. You feel proud of yourself. You feel confident. So long as men can... And listen, very easy. Seriously, one of the students, the boys, was telling me the other day that Shakespeare is difficult. I hate Shakespeare. I said, this is a misconception. This is a prejudice. Did you study anything about Shakespeare? Did you read anything about Shakespeare? Not much. When you read his poetry, to be or not to be, that is the question. Yes, it's not this simplistic, but it's easy to understand. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see. So long lives this and this gives life. That's why I usually advise myself, when you learn things about poetry, Shakespeare, go. All of you use social media. Post this on your Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, Snapchat. Use them in your life. Today I want all of you to go home, and when you have electricity, if you have electricity, you just type, and every fair from fair sometime declines. One of the most beautiful lines ever. Start shifting your life, your Facebook, your social media, everything into English, and I'm sure you're going to benefit a lot. So when people are, what does this mean? Your aunt or your uncle will be like,
Yes.
wow, we're proud of you. When people ask you what it means, you just explain it to them.
Come to translate the story.
Yeah, translating or just explaining. Yes, more questions. More, please.
I always knew that Shakespeare's style is free verse. I never knew that his poems included the blank verse.
Okay,
Can you tell me the difference?
Okay, Shakespeare mainly wrote in verse. His sonnets are
Yes.
classical English verse. But his plays, because when you write a 5,000 line play, you can't make them rhyme in any particular way. So generally this is called blank verse. What's blank verse? It's verse but doesn't rhyme.
Yes.
Generally in the play, because it's very difficult to make the whole play rhyme A, B, or A, B, C or something. And this is totally different from free verse. Free verse is something that appeared probably 200 years ago. الشعر الحر. Free verse. Generally in blank verse we have music, we have rhythm, but we don't have rhyme.
Yes.
We don't have rhyme. Free verse, generally no music and no rhyme. It's the poetry that most people write nowadays. 20th century, 21st century. Okay? In his plays, Shakespeare and Marlowe, they adopted blank verse. They don't focus, because if they want to focus on the rhyme, it's going to be really very restricting in a sense. Last point, 1 minute, yes?
Have Chaucer wrote any other literary works other than?
Of course, yeah. Of course. Many. And that's why he's the father of English poetry or English literature. We're only studying the Canterbury Tales. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for these questions. If you have more questions, feel free to ask. Thank you. يعطيكم العافية.